All right, everyone, welcome in. Friday night rivalry week, and we just witnessed a critical one, obviously, for UCF with Mackenzie Milton in bad shape. I did not personally see the injury. I was locked in on Virginia Tech. Did not see the injury to Mackenzie Milton, but it's apparently very, very severe. But we have yet to get back any specific medical diagnosis. This is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Welcome in as we get you set for the two big primetime affairs, with Oklahoma taking on West Virginia in Morgantown, and also Washington State. Two championship berths are on the line for Washington State. It's a trip to the Pac-12 championship game opposite Utah, and for the Cougars, of course, it's continued life in the college football playoff selection process. For West Virginia, it's a first ever trip to the Big 12 championship game. And for Oklahoma, it is also that, a trip to the Big 12 championship and a rematch with Texas. And of course, the college football playoff sitting at number 6. They're in prime position to earn a spot. Yeah, so Virginia Tech. Virginia came back from 14-0 down at the half. They battled all the way back to a lead, and with the way that they were dominating with 4 consecutive touchdown possessions, and Virginia Tech struggling on offense at one point, their quarterback Ryan Willis had 3 consecutive passes batted down. He appeared to be rattled. They weren't moving the ball. Then he completed a pass downfield, and that set up the Virginia Tech drive to score the game-tying touchdown with a fumble into the end zone that was recovered by the Hokies, desperately hanging on to bowl hopes at 4-6 coming in, with a tentative scheduled game against Marshall next week. And number 2, what is now a 15-game winning streak against Virginia. Hokies tie it at the gun, 31-all. Both teams had a possession right after that, so they scored with about a minute left, and then they went to overtime, and Virginia Tech played conservatively, kicked the field goal, went up 34-31, and then a botched exchange between Bryce Perkins and Jordan Ellis, 2 very experienced players that have played together and have run through the reps of that exchange, obviously in practice, but more so in a game than any combination of players on the Virginia roster, because Jordan Ellis is the leading rusher, and Bryce Perkins couldn't make up his mind, and there was penetration, and he just kind of jabbed the ball at Ellis, brought it back, and fumbled with no contact from the defense, and that kept the winning streak alive for the Hokies at 15 consecutive. They are now 5-6. They will play for a bowl berth against Marshall next week. While we're watching championship play in the Power 5 and the Group of 5, there is going to be some odd scattering of games, like Virginia Tech taking on Marshall and Iowa State against Drake. That game taking place in Ames next weekend as well. All right. Also, of course, Texas going to the Big 12 championship game. I posted a video, my reaction on the Texas 24-17 win over Kansas, and more so a matchup against either West Virginia or Oklahoma. I've got the phone lines open. I'm only going to stick around because you guys obviously want to lock in on the 2 huge games tonight. So we'll take you all the way up to kickoff of West Virginia, Oklahoma. I'll also be watching Washington and Washington State. I'll get the phone line in the chat. And, you know, Hound Dog is reminding me of something here. Hound Dog, thank you so much. So I caught a couple YouTubers this week that were activating the live chat, the super chat. We already had the live chat. The super chat is what they call it. I had not familiarized myself with the super chat. And you guys will know, hopefully you won't know, but most likely the way things are going with some personal business and some situations going on, unfortunately, that I will need to let you know why this is so very important. So I appreciate it, Hound Dog. Thank you so much for the $5. That is tremendous. everybody else. Just enjoy the college football talk. If you would like to contribute to Mark Rogers TV, this is one viable way that you can do so. So Hound Dog, again, that's amazing. Thank you. Let's see what's in the chat. Hound Dog, go Vols. Prodigy Roman, this is the first time I've seen you on Mark Rogers TV. Hi. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving, and welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Go Dogs, Georgia Tech for the Peach State tomorrow. Fix those helmets. Well, what I went with there, Iron Cross, was earlier today I shot a Texas video, and I didn't have a Kansas helmet to shoot the video to put the two teams up on the top shelf against each other. I just had Texas. So I didn't want Texas all by their lonesome up there. So since I don't have a West Virginia helmet, of course, Oklahoma is the other team playing today that has the most prominence. And then along with that, Washington State, I don't have a Cougars helmet, so I've got Washington. So that's repping the most important games and results of the day. Texas going to the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma playing West Virginia, and Washington State. There's the selection, Iron Cross. You'll have your day. Ohio State, Michigan tomorrow, and some others that I will need to rearrange. I didn't know that was necessarily going to become such a centerpiece of debate and conversation, where the helmets are placed. I've seen other radio and TV shows where they just place random helmets, and you'll see Wisconsin and Kansas and Iowa State and Oregon State, and it has nothing to do with what's actually going on. But I've tried to be fairly consistent with actually, if there's something, some kind of a topic or theme to the show or the video, then I try to display that and make that representative with the helmet display. But we'll get it all worked out for you, Iron Cross, tomorrow. What do we got? Yes, Hound Dog, thank you again. So much. I cannot express. And we will have our chat about Mark Rogers TV and the channel one way or the other coming up in the next few weeks. Richard Neal, good to see you. Of course, very happy his weekend has been made with a 35-3 romp of Ole Miss. And now Mississippi State waits with their 8-4 record to see where they go bowling. Devin Ray on the line. Perkins, a decent quarterback, but the U should have beat him if we kept Perry in. Maybe not. N'Kosi Perry was having his issues, and he played almost the entire first half and threw 2 awful interceptions in that game against the Cavaliers. Virginia 7-5. They will play in postseason play, but 15 consecutive losses to Virginia Tech. And it's not necessarily as though Virginia Tech's had Virginia's number. This has been one of the very few times that they've been an underdog, a 4.5-point underdog in that game. Basically, Virginia Tech's just had a much better football program, and Virginia's been awful for about 10 years. And even before that, they weren't great. They were decent. They were decent like they're decent now. And Virginia Tech was a top 10 to 15 program then. And so the 15 consecutive wins are basically legitimate, mostly a better team beating a inferior team. Not necessarily this year, though, with Virginia Tech using the home crowd and turnovers and big plays out of the special teams. Trey Turner had a remarkable game with a couple big catches, big catches, as Ed Sullivan once said, big catches, and the huge block punt in the first half as well. Iowa State versus a non-scholarship Drake. Ricky breathing a sigh of relief. Aren't you, Ricky? And that brings me to my predictions, which I'm mighty happy with right now. So that was one of many in which I hit pretty much right there with Nebraska and 9 points, but I took Iowa to win the game. So thus far, let's see what we've got here. I took against the spread, Kansas in the 15. That's a winner. Central Florida to cover the 14. They won 38-10. That's a win. Nebraska plus 9. That's a win. Arkansas plus 23.5. They lost by 38. Not a win. Lost there. Virginia Tech plus the 4.5. A win. Oregon covering 18.5 points. That's a win. 5-1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. 5-1 as we stand. When the games are completed tonight, in addition to the post-game wrap-up instant analysis right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, I will break down my predictions for tomorrow. Super chat, well-deserved, Hound Dog. Swampy McGee, thanks for joining us. We always appreciate it. Iron Cross as well. Sense of Tumor, Roll Tide, Baby. My pick there, Bama 30-13. Hope you joined us earlier today. We jumped on the live chat with SG1 Sports at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Oklahoma overall, Sense of Tumor, overall is a terrible team. They're just an awful team. Terrible. All right, Oklahoma D and Ohio State D might be under scrutiny on Sunday. Kyler Murray gets all that hype, carving up defenses in the trash can Big 12. Apex Orca 78, thoughts and prayers are with Mackenzie Milton. Absolutely, Apex Orca 78. Mackenzie Milton, I, again, did not see the play. Not that I need to see the play, but I'm hearing that it was pretty awful, pretty gruesome. Mackenzie Milton was a guy that I was honored enough to interview at the American Conference Media Days before the season started. And, of course, all the mics in his face and all the reporters asking him, are you going to go undefeated again? What do you need to do to go undefeated? Are you being snubbed by the College Football Playoff Committee last year? What are you going to do about that? What should be done about it? And he handled himself like a true class individual, student athlete. Yeah, Swampy McGee, it appears as though based on the conversation late in the Iowa game, that's all I picked up on the bowl conversation, is that the Hawkeyes most likely are headed to the Holiday Bowl and San Diego. That's been a destination for Michigan State and Minnesota from the Big Ten the past 2 years, taking on Washington State, and that's been a win for the Big Ten. Big loss for UCF, was hoping they would claim another national championship. Milton is already having surgery. Okay. So, again, we've got a big Texas win against Kansas. Tom Herman was just at the podium, or at least the clip was just being shown on TV, making the quite obvious statement that they're there to win the game next week, not just show up. So it's good to know that the Longhorns will be there trying to win the Big 12 championship, and they just weren't satisfied in just showing up. So I don't know. Hopefully he was asked some ridiculous question to set up that response. UCF without Mackenzie Milton, with the freshman quarterback, Daryl Mack, I believe his name. Again, I had that on the second monitor. Pretty confident that Central Florida would not be challenged much, although at 17-3, then 17-10. It got to 17-10 after a long Bulls drive, so it was somewhat in question in the third quarter at that point. But Mack had to start for Milton earlier this year in another game. I don't remember exactly what that game is, but I'm going to do my homework, and we'll get on top of that situation with the American Championship being played coming up this weekend, with Memphis, a big winner over Houston, 52-31, with a huge second half in that game. Ed Oliver's possible final game at Houston, depending on his decision regarding playing in a bowl game. All right, folks, the number is 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. Of course, we're looking at Washington State. I am picking the Huskies to win on the road. And, of course, I'll take the 3 points as well. And we've got Oklahoma as a slight favorite at West Virginia. That spread is 3.5 points. I like the Mountaineers with the defense and the 3.5 points to win the game and go on to the Big 12 championship game. Although, if I want to stick with my preseason prediction, I could be right on the money with Texas, Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game. I also, let's see. This is just hitting me. I predicted preseason Washington, Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. I predict Georgia, Alabama preseason in the SEC championship game. So I could be a 3 for 3 there. I missed in the ACC, and I also missed in the Big Ten. Ohio State, Wisconsin, Clemson, Miami. Devin, I'm a Hurricane, but UCF is the only team that resembles a Florida-like team. Blazing speed and Stella, freaky athletes. Yeah, Iowa in Yankee Stadium last year against Boston College. Sense of tumor. Will we see Terrell Lewis in the SEC championship game? Good question. Good question. Haven't looked into that. Maybe you guys have some insight into that situation. All right, folks, 860-325-3687. Hope you checked out the Texas video, because I not only looked back at the Kansas game, because that was obviously a game that we all assumed Texas would win. Although Kansas had an onside kick with $1:37 on the clock, only down 24-17. But Sam Ehlinger threw 2 interceptions, his first interceptions thrown since week 1. But I kind of projected forward. And what I like to do at this point in the season, because we've got a lot of teams playing this weekend that we won't see again until next September. And today we saw Kansas, Nebraska. We saw possibly Virginia Tech. They will play next weekend against Marshall, but they may not make it to a bowl game. This pretty much wrapped up that they should make it to a bowl game unless they have another Old Dominion kind of effort next weekend. But I like to look at those teams and project what we are going to see next season. So for Kansas, Les Miles on the sideline. So I'm going to dive into some Kansas personnel, see who they have coming back. Puka Williams at running back, who ran for 104 yards today against Texas and has run for 1,100 yards this season. He's back. He's only a freshman right now, back for his sophomore season. So Kansas personnel I need to look up and look at in preparation for 2019. And also Nebraska with Scott Frost in his second season. Of course, the Huskers played a much, much better down the stretch and took Iowa to the wire today on the road. Will Grier get over the hump and live up to the hype? For me, Will Grier has lived up to the hype. He's one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in college football. Now, his team has a lot to do with whether he will play in a Big 12 championship game. He put up 40 or 42 points, whatever the final score was, 42-41 against Texas. Yes, they've lost the 2 games to Iowa State, maybe the best defense in the Big 12, certainly the best rush defense in the Big 12, and lost that game against Oklahoma State. And the Cowboys are the biggest mystery, Jekyll and Hyde team maybe in college football this year. Oklahoma State, good enough to beat Texas, good enough to beat West Virginia, good enough to take Oklahoma to the last play of the game and a 2-point conversion. But then they lose to Kansas State by 19 points. They lost to Baylor. So, yeah, we're about ready to kick off. We'll take it right up to kickoff. And if anybody wants to squeeze in a call at 860-325-3687, I appreciate it. Swampy can't believe that Michigan's a 4-point favorite against Ohio State. Meaning it should be higher? That's about where I thought that would be, 4 to 6 points. Michigan's just been better. These 2 teams have played 6 common opponents, and only the Michigan State result and yardage, as I broke down this week, is comparable. The Ohio State effort at East Lansing against Sparty and Michigan. Otherwise, Michigan dominated Maryland. OSU obviously was taken right to the brink. Ohio State, Indiana, that could be argued as well, as the Buckeyes struggled in that game into the third quarter, but then they really laid down the gas throttle and blew out Indiana by 23. Michigan more or less struggled from start to finish with Indiana and only put the game away late with about 4 to 5 minutes left with a field goal to make it 31-20. Michigan was only up 1 score with 5 minutes left. They both crushed Rutgers. That's inconsequential. They both played Nebraska, and of course, the Buckeyes struggled and barely won 36-31. And Michigan completely annihilated Nebraska 56-10. All right, we're in Morgantown. Final game for Will Grier and a number of West Virginia Mountaineers. This may be Dana Holgerson's best chance in quite a while to win a Big 12 championship. He has the quarterback who is the very best in the league, or so we thought going into conference play this season. That was one of the reasons why a lot of people made West Virginia their chic pick. But obviously on this field, he's facing the other best quarterback in the Big 12 in Kyler Murray. Space Mountain on the line. Ricky as well. Devin Ray. Yeah, I'm thinking West Virginia wins this game 45-41, which is close to what Vegas is pegged as a over-under. Who are you guys watching tomorrow? I think I'm going Ohio State, Michigan at noon. Certainly going to keep an eye on Florida State in particular. trying to think who else is playing at noon, but Florida State's my second game. At 3:30, it's going to be all about the Iron Bowl, although if that turns into a 28-0 game like a lot of Alabama games in the first half, then I have to go to some other games. Let's check out the schedule here real quick. Who wins the Florida game? Florida wins the Florida game. Yeah, Ricky points out that the Washington band had a bus accident. One of 6 buses rolled over, headed to Pullman. They decided to pull everyone back to the University of Washington, and they will not travel to the game. Antoine Johnson letting us know that the Big Ten is the most exciting game every year. The Big Ten is the most exciting game every year. I think there might be a few typos in there, and I think a little bit of sarcasm, I'm guessing. I want to check out the schedule one more time. And it's just another bit of content that I would want to produce each and every week is basically map out the TV schedule for everyone and then get your thoughts on who you're going to watch. But we'll pick that up hopefully next season. For me tomorrow, Ohio State, Michigan at noon, obviously. Florida State's going to be on my second screen. And then my third screen is going to fight between Georgia Tech because of the playoff implications if Georgia Tech keeps it close. If not, I like Indiana, Purdue. They're playing for a bowl bid. Both teams are 5-6. Duke and Wake Forest play at 12:30, and Wake needs to win to get to a bowl game as well. Duke's looking to finish 8-4. And then, of course, at 3:30, it's going to be the Iron Bowl for me. Second screen goes to a lot of marginal games, a lot of okay games that I wouldn't mind watching, but nobody really takes that second spot. Maryland at Penn State, Illinois at Northwestern, Pitt at Miami. Maryland needs to win to get to a bowl game. Penn State's clearly in postseason play. Illinois, Northwestern, they're both locked in. Pitt, Miami, both going to postseason play. Pitt to the ACC championship game. Arizona State. So both of those teams need to win to get to a bowl game as well, the Territorial Cup. Minnesota, Wisconsin. The Gophers need to win to get to 6-6. Playing Wisconsin, and they haven't beaten the Badgers in 15 years. And if I had the SEC Network, of course, we did our Tennessee Vandy preview this week, 4 o'clock Eastern time on the SEC Network. At 7 o'clock, it's going to be about South Carolina and Clemson for me because of the playoff implications and the minuscule chance that South Carolina could possibly pull off the upset and derail Clemson. But if that turns into a rout, I'm looking at Louisville, Kentucky, Kansas State, Iowa State. And then, of course, LSU and Texas A&M. Again, if I had the SEC Network, we've got our kickoff. So let me finish very quickly with Notre Dame. USC means everything, of course, for the Irish. and late night. I am looking forward to, after our big wrap-up show, locking in on Utah State and Boise State. Bama wouldn't fear a team that almost lost to Syracuse at home. Clemson so overrated, they're due for an upset. Did you watch the Ohio State-Michigan game last year? Was the most exciting game. Antoine Johnson is telling us Ohio State and Michigan last year was the most exciting game. That 31-20 game, it was a decent game. It wasn't that exciting. Maybe you're remembering the game the year before, the overtime game, 30-27 with a measurement. All right. I want to lock in on Oklahoma, West Virginia. You guys enjoy the chat if you'd like to stay on. I will check. I'm going to lock in on the game, watch the game, take notes. I'll be back after Washington State, and this gem right here, OU and WVU. And we'll talk it all up right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Look at that. West Virginia right down the field. Get your popcorn ready. Absolutely. That is Oklahoma defense for you, especially in the secondary with those small little defensive backs. I'm going to shut things down only because I'm going to use this monitor because I want to watch Washington State too. So we will see you guys after both games, and I will send out the notification hopefully 15 to 30 minutes ahead when I estimate the time that the games are going to be over. All right. Good to see you guys. Thanks for the support. Enjoy the games. We will see you soon. Yes, West Virginia is supposed to have some defense. They've played top 25 to 30 ranked defense. Oklahoma is almost 90th in the nation in defense. That's why I picked West Virginia, but that's only one drive. So we'll see how it turns out. See you guys soon.